What body system do you think keeps you alive every second? Do all animals have the same organ systems? Today, we're going to explore the organ systems of representative animals. Now, each animal has organ systems that work together to help them survive, just like us humans. As we go through this lesson, we'll see how different animals perform the same life processes, like breathing, digesting, and moving in their own unique ways. Now, after going through this lesson, you are expected to identify the different organ systems of representative animals, describe the characteristics of different organ systems of representative animals. First is the digestive system. The digestive system processes food so that the body can absorb nutrients, minerals, vitamins, and water needed for survival, growth, and energy. Animal nutrition is the process of taking in food or the ingestion, taking apart food into smaller components or digestion, and taking up nutrients into the body or absorption. There are four main stages of food processing. First, ingestion, followed by digestion, absorption, and elimination or digestion. Now, these steps ensure that the animal cells get the energy and materials they need to function properly. All animals need food for energy, but they don't all digest it the same way. Some, like jellyfish, have one opening for both eating and removing waste. Others, like chickens and mammals, have a complete digestive system that allows food to move in one direction, from mouth to anus, so digestion is more efficient. A gastrovascular cavity is a one-way chamber where food goes in and waste comes out through the same opening. It works like a simple stomach. Food enters, get digested, and then the leftover waste goes out the same ways. Examples: cnidarians such as jellyfish, hydra, coral, and sea anemone. They don't have a mouth and anus like humans. Only one opening serves both purposes. You think of it this way: it's like using the same door to enter and exit a room. Food enters the body and waste leaves through the same hole. Okay, second is the respiratory system. Now, the respiratory system allows animals to take in air and use oxygen to stay alive. It also removes waste gases from the body. When we breathe in, we bring oxygen into our lungs. When we breathe out, we release carbon dioxide. Now, this process is called gas exchange. Oxygen goes in, carbon dioxide goes out. All animals need oxygen to live, but they breathe in different ways depending on their body structure and where they live. Say, for example, amoeba breathes through its body surface. Oxygen enters and carbon dioxide leaves by diffusion or gas process to its skin. Say, for example, the fish. No, a fish uses gills to get oxygen from water. Now, water enters the mouth, passes over the gills, and leaves through the opening called the operculum. Now, the earthworm breathes through its moist skin. Oxygen enters and carbon dioxide goes out directly through the skin, while frog uses both lungs and skin. It breathes with lungs in land and through its slimy skin in water. Respiration always involves oxygen going in and carbon dioxide going out, no matter the animal. The tracheal system of insects. Now, insects breathe through small holes in their bodies called spiracles. Air enters the spiracles and travels through tiny tubes called trachea. which carry oxygen directly to all body parts. Unlike humans, insects do not have lungs. Their tracheal tubes deliver oxygen straight to their tissues and remove carbon dioxide. How it works? Air goes in through the spiracles or the small openings in the body. It moves through the trachea or the air tubes. Oxygen spreads to all parts of the insect's body. Carbon dioxide goes out the same way. This system works well for small animals, but not for large ones. Take note, that's why only small creatures like insects use it. The mammalian respiratory system. Mammals breathe in air through their nose or mouth. The air goes into the lungs where oxygen enters the blood and carbon dioxide leaves the blood. The circulatory system then carries oxygen to all parts of the body through the blood. Now, how it works? When mammals inhale, air rich in oxygen enters the lungs. Now, inside the lungs, tiny air sacs or alveoli allow oxygen to move into the blood. Now, this carbon dioxide or a waste gas moves from the blood into the lungs. When mammals exhale, carbon dioxide leaves the body. This exchange of gases is called diffusion. The respiratory system and circulatory system work together to keep every cell alive. Terrestrial ventilation, the alternating process of inhalation and exhalation. There are two mechanisms of breathing. Inspiration allows air to flow into the lungs, and expiration, it involves gases leaving the lungs. Breathing means air moves in and out of the lungs again and again. When we inhale, inspiration, air flows into the lungs, bringing in oxygen. When we exhale or expiration, carbon dioxide leaves the lungs and goes out of the body. How it works? During inhalation, the chest expands and the lungs fill the air. During exhalation, the chest relaxes and air goes out. This back and forth movement keeps oxygen coming in and waste gases going out. Now, what happens if we stop exhaling? The waste gases, the carbon dioxide, stays in the body, which is harmful. Breathing happens all the time, even when we sleep, to keep our cells supplied with oxygen. The circulatory system moves blood throughout the body. It carries oxygen and nutrients to the cells and takes away waste like carbon dioxide. It also keeps the body's temperature and pH balance, helping you stay healthy and stable. Now, how it works? The heart pumps blood. Blood vessels carry blood to all body parts. Oxygen and nutrients go into the cells. Then carbon dioxide and waste leave the cells and go back to the heart to be removed. Now, why does our heart beat faster when we run? Okay, because the body needs more oxygen and nutrients when we're active. The circulatory system works with the respiratory system. The lungs provide oxygen and the blood delivers it. Blood flow helps regulate body temperature. It cools or warms the body as needed. Now, there are two kinds of circulatory system, the closed circulatory system and the open circulatory system. Closed circulatory system, the blood stays inside blood vessels as it moves around the body. This helps transport oxygen and nutrients quickly. Example, humans and fish. Now, this open circulatory system, the blood flows freely around the body and is not always inside the vessels. It moves more slowly. Example, insects and crabs. Now let's look at the two types of circulatory systems. On the left, we have the open circulatory system. In this system, the heart pumps blood into open spaces around the organs. The blood moves slowly and directly touches the body cells. We can see this type in insects and other arthropods. Now, on the right, we have the closed circulatory system. Here, the heart pumps blood through tubes called blood vessels. The blood stays inside these vessels and moves quickly to all parts of the body. Humans and other vertebrates have this kind of system. Let's take a look at this image. On the left side, you can see an example of an open circulatory system, like the one in a grasshopper. Notice that the heart pumps a fluid called hemolymph now into open spaces around the organs. The hemolymph moves slowly and directly butts the organs with nutrients before flowing back to the heart through small openings called pores. This type of system doesn't use closed blood vessels. Now, on the right side, we have a closed circulatory system, like the one found in an earthworm. Here, the blood stays inside the blood vessels the whole time. The main heart or dorsal vessel and several auxiliary hearts pump blood through these vessels. The blood travels quickly through small branches to reach all the organs. This system is more efficient because the blood moves faster and carries oxygen more effectively. There are two types of closed circulatory system. One, single circulation. Blood flows to and fro from the heart through a single pathway. Now, the second one is the double circulation. There are two separate pathways that are needed, that are connected to the heart through which oxygenated and deoxygenated blood flows. It occurs in birds and mammals. On the left side, we see single circulation, which happens in fish. The heart has two main chambers, one atrium and one ventricle. Okay, so the blood flows from the heart to the gills where it picks up oxygen and then moves directly to the rest of the body before returning to the heart. The blood passes through the heart only once in each complete circuit. Now look at the right side, which shows double circulation. This type is found in amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Here, the blood passes through the heart, which twice in one complete trip around the body. In amphibians, like frogs, the heart has three chambers, two atria and one ventricle. Blood from the body and lungs mixes a little inside the heart. In reptiles, the heart is more advanced. It still has three chambers, but a partial wall helps reduce mixing of oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor blood. Finally, in birds and mammals, the heart has four chambers, two atria and two ventricles. This keeps oxygen-rich blood completely separate from oxygen-poor blood, making their circulation very efficient. The fourth one is the urinary system, wherein it removes excess water, salts, and waste products from the blood and body and controls pH. There are four main processes involved in waste removal in the urinary system. The first step is filtration. Now, this happens in the kidneys where the blood is filtered to remove waste. And where the blood is filtered, there is this extra water and other small particles. Next is reabsorption. Here, the useful substances like water, glucose, and some salts are taken back into the blood. The body keeps what it needs. The third step is secretion. In this process, the kidneys add more waste and excess ions into the urine from the blood. And finally, we have excretion. This is when the urine, which contains all the waste, leaves the body through the urinary system. So remember, the path of waste removal goes in this order: filtration, reabsorption, secretion, and excretion. Now let's take a closer look at this image. It shows how the kidney filters the blood and forms urine through four main steps. First, we have glomerular filtration. This happens in the part called the Bowman's capsule. Here, the blood is filtered and small particles like water, salts, and waste pass through to form a fluid called filtrate. Next is tubular reabsorption. As the filtrate flows through the tubule, the kidney takes back useful substances such as glucose, amino acids, and some salts, returning them to the blood. Then comes tubular secretion. In this step, the kidney adds extra waste and harmful substances from the blood into the filtrate. This helps remove anything the body doesn't need. And finally, we have water reabsorption. The kidney reabsorbs most of the water from the filtrate and sends it back to the blood to prevent dehydration. What's left becomes urine, which exits the body. So remember, the kidneys clean the blood and produce urine through filtration, reabsorption, secretion, and water reabsorption, a process that keeps our body's internal balance healthy. Do fish pee? Alright. Now, fish have kidneys which produce urine containing ammonium, phosphorus, urea, and nitrous waste. The expelled urine encourages plant growth on coral reefs. Downstream benefits also um, include increased fertilization of algae and seagrass, which in turn provides food for the fish. Yes, fish do pee. Like other animals, fish need to get rid of waste from their bodies. And one way they do this is by urinating. Fish have kidneys that filter waste from their blood, creating urine that contains things like ammonia, urea, and excess salts. This waste is then excreted through a small opening near their tail or gills, depending on the type of fish. Interestingly, fish urine is actually helpful for the environment. Let's look carefully at this image. It shows the excretory systems of different animals: a mammal or dog, a bird, chicken, and an elephant. Let's start with the dog on the upper left. In mammals like dogs, the kidneys filter the blood to remove waste and excess water. Now, this urine then passes through the ureters to the bladder where it's stored. When the dog urinates, the urine exits through the urethra. You can also see the prostate gland and penis, which are part of the male reproductive system. Next, look at the chicken in the upper right. Birds don't have a urinary bladder. Instead, their kidneys also filter waste from the blood, but the waste is not stored as liquid urine. It mixes with solid waste and leaves the body through a common opening called the cloaca. This is why bird droppings contain both solid and liquid parts. Finally, at the bottom, we have the elephant. Its system works much like other mammals. The kidneys clean the blood, the urinary bladder stores the urine, and the urethra carries it out of the body. You can also see the reproductive organs labeled, which share some pathways with the urinary system. The fifth one is the nervous system. It collects, transfers, and processes information and directs short term change in other organ systems. It shows the two main parts of the nervous system: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Let's start with the central nervous system, or CNS, which is shown in the center of the body. It is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. The CNS acts as the control center of the body. It processes the information it receives and sends out instructions in what to do. It contains relay neurons, also called interneurons, which are responsible for processing and interpreting the data that comes from the rest of the body. Now look at the peripheral nervous system or PNS. This part includes the cranial nerves, spinal nerves, and peripheral nerves that branch out from the spinal cord and reach different parts of the body. The PNS contains sensory neurons which carry information from the sense organs to the brain, and motor neurons which carry messages from the brain and spinal cord to the muscles and glands. In simple terms, the CNS is the command center that makes decisions, and the PNS is the messenger system that carries information to and from the CNS. Together, they help your body react, move, and sense the world around you. The evolution of the nervous system, how it became more complex and advanced in different animals over time. Let's start with the jellyfish in the first image. Jellyfish have a very simple nervous system made up of a nerve net. This means they don't have a brain. Instead, their nerves are spread throughout the body, allowing them to respond to touch and movement. Next, in B, the flatworm. It has a more organized system. It has a primitive brain and nerve cords running down its body. This allows it to coordinate its movement better than the jellyfish. In C, the earthworm has a simple brain and a ventral nerve cord with ganglia, which are small clusters of nerve cells. These ganglia help control different body segments, making the earthworm's movements smoother and more coordinated. Then in D, we see the fish. The fish has a forebrain, but it's still small compared to the rest of the brain. This part controls smell and basic survival actions. Now in E, the goose has a larger forebrain and a cerebellum. These parts help control balance, movement, and more complex behaviors like flying and navigating. And finally, in F, the human. Brain is the most advanced. The forebrain is the largest part and is responsible for higher thinking, memory, learning, emotions, and decision making. The cerebellum helps with movement and coordination. So, as you can see, the nervous system evolved from a simple nerve net in jellyfish to a highly developed brain in humans, showing how animals became more capable of complex actions and intelligence over time. The sixth one is the muscular system. It is one of the most important systems in animals because it provides movement, support, and heat production. Every time an animal walks, runs, flies, or even breathes, muscles are at work. Muscles actually make up most of the body mass, around half of an animal's total weight. That's why when we look at animals, especially those raised for food, a large portion of what we see as meat is actually muscle tissue. Now, you might not realize this, but when you eat a piece of chicken, pork, or beef, you're actually eating muscle. The meat on the chop or roast is composed mainly of protein, which is what gives muscles their strength and allows them to function. So, to sum it up, the muscular system doesn't just make movement possible. It also supports the body structure and helps regulate body temperature through the heat produced during muscle activity. Let's look at this chart that shows the three main types of muscles and in animals and humans. First, we have the skeletal muscle at the top. Now, these are the muscles that are attached to our bones and are responsible for voluntary movements, meaning you can control them. For example, when you move your arms or legs, that's your skeletal muscles that are working. Their fibers are striated or striped, tubular in shape, and multinucleated, which means each cell has more than one nucleus. Next, in the middle, we see the smooth muscle. These are involuntary muscles, meaning we don't consciously control them. They are found in the walls of internal organs like the stomach, intestines, and blood vessels. Their fibers are non striated, spindle shaped, and urinoculated, which means there are only one nucleus per cell. These muscles work automatically, for example, helping your digestive system move food along. And finally, at the bottom, we have the cardiac muscle, which makes up the walls of the heart. This type of muscle is also involuntary because the heart beats on its own without us thinking about it. Cardiac muscle fibers are striated like skeletal muscle, but they are branched and urinoculated. This unique structure allows the heart to contract automatically and pump blood efficiently throughout the body. This image shows muscle contraction at the microscopic level. The purple structures are myosin filaments, and the red strand above is actin. When a muscle contracts, the myosin heads attach to the actin filaments and pull them inward using energy from ATP. This sliding action shortens the muscle fiber, producing movement. Tendons tie muscles to bones, helping move the skeleton when muscles contract. Ligaments, on the other hand, link bones to other bones at the joints, providing stability and support. Now that we've learned how muscles work, let's look at this example with cats. Cats don't get hurt easily when they fall because they have long, flexible legs and strong muscles. These muscles help absorb the impact by slowing down their fall. Instead of breaking bones, the energy is spread out through their movement. Now that we've seen how muscles move the body, let's look at what supports them: the skeletal system. The skeleton gives our body shape and support, protects soft organs like the heart and lungs, and helps with movement at the joints and even produces blood cells inside the bones. Now that we know what the skeletal system does, let's look at its two main types. Endoskeletons, like in humans, dogs, and horses, are internal. The bones are inside the body and support it from within. Now, exoskeletons found in arthropods like crabs, cicadas, and grasshoppers, those are external. A hard outer covering that protects the supports the body. And some shed or molt their exoskeleton as they grow. Now, here's a comparison between endoskeletons and exoskeletons. Endoskeletons are internal, made of bones and cartilage, and found in vertebrates. They're living structures that grow with the body and are flexible for movement. Exoskeletons are, on the other hand, are external, made of chitin or shells, and found in arthropods. They're non-living, don't grow within the body, and must be shed as the animal grows. From what we learned about the skeletal system, let's see how many bones humans actually have. Babies are born with around 270 bones, but as they grow, some bones fuse together, leaving about 206 to 213 bones in adults. The number can vary slightly because some people have differences in their ribs, vertebrae, or fingers. Now that we know how the skeletal system works, let's look at how it connects with other body systems. This chart shows the major organs and functions of each system, like how the digestive system breaks down food, the respiratory system helps us breathe, and the circulatory system moves nutrients and oxygen around. Each system has a unique rule, but all of them work together to keep the body functioning properly. Now that we've learned how all the organ systems work together, let's think critically. What do you think would happen if one organ system were missing? Could we still survive normally without a certain organ? And finally, which organ do you believe is the most important for life? Let's reflect and share your ideas. All our body systems work together to keep us alive and healthy. Each system has a special job, but they all depend on one another. When one fails, the whole body is affected. So, to stay healthy, we must take care of every part of our body.